Marlon Vera versus Davey Grant 2, the rematch, takes place this weekend in the People's Co-Main event of UFC Fight Night Vegas 29, Korean Zombie versus Ige, and I can't wait for this bantamweight bout, just like I can't wait for every other fight that I break down on this channel. This one is no exception. A great scrap, a rematch about 5 years in the making. 2016 was when they first took each other on. Great scrap back then. Marlon Vera, a very young man, I believe around 22 or 23 years of age. Davey Grant was the favourite back then, and quite a hefty favourite as well, and he really badly put a whooping on Marlon Vera in that first fight. I mean, 30-26 on some judges' scorecards, a 10-8 in round 2, a close round 1, and round 3 was kind of close as well, but Davey Grant won both of those rounds. Just a real shutout performance from Davey Grant against Marlon Vera the first time. Who has evolved more? I'm going to hedge my bets on Marlon Vera, but is it enough to overcome a 30-26? Because that's not just, hey, this many years ago, Davey Grant edged out a split decision over Marlon Vera, and now Vera is improved, he might be able to win. This is a 30-26. Has Vera improved enough to make it a 29-27? You know what I mean? Has Vera improved enough to make a 29-28 loss? You know what I'm saying? Has he improved enough to then go above all of those and get a win against Davey Grant in this rematch? I really love the fight. You've got my countryman, Englishman, Davey Grant, taking on Marlon Vera. And man, Davey Grant was not on anyone's radar not too long ago, before all of this whole pandemic situation started. I mean, Davey Grant has really picked things up. KO over Kai Kamaka, no other Hawaiian. Martin Day put him to sleep, made him Martin Knight, if you don't mind me saying. Davey Grant put him out cold badly in the third round, got on everyone's radar again after coming off a bit of a weird split decision to another opponent, Grigory Popov, in that bantamweight division. But after that, everyone was like, right, Davey Grant, he got a KO over Martin Day in the third round, but he got his jaw broken in that fight. Can he keep this thing going? They put him against Jonathan Martinez, who is a great contender in the bantamweight division at the time, coming off a great win against Frankie Saenz, really putting together some momentum in that bantamweight division. They put him against Davey Grant. He's the favourite. Davey Grant goes out there, does really well. Close first round, gets dropped at the end of it. That makes him lose that round. Round 2 comes out. Close round again. Davey Grant starting to get the better of Jonathan Martinez and puts him out cold in that fight. Really badly. Davey Grant is someone not to be messed with. And I really was thinking about picking him as an underdog here. Very, very closely. I was thinking about it all night. Like, Davey Grant could go out there and just catch Marlon Vera on the chin. And that's it for Marlon Vera. It doesn't matter what you've improved on. Grant seems to have this power now that's just completely ridiculous, and he's laying people out with it. And people with good chins. Jonathan Martinez has a good chin. Martin Day had a good chin, and down they go to Davey Grant. Marlon Vera's got a real tough challenge here. He should not be the kind of favourite that he is. I feel like I'm still going to be picking Marlon Vera to get this one done, just because he is a completely different fighter than he was back then. Davey Grant does a lot of the same things that he used to do, but maybe a little bit better. But Marlon Vera understands more things to do. You know what I'm saying? Davey Grant knew everything about the game. He knew how to get takedowns. He knew how to go for certain submission attempts, how to land big shots, all of that kind of stuff, pressuring opponents, all of that. He knew everything. He doesn't look too different. He just looks like he does everything more efficiently now. Marlon Vera didn't really look like he knew how to deal with pressure, how to change pressure into his favour, which is something that he's been doing a lot recently to his opponents. He's the guy walking them down. In the Davey Grant fight the first time, Davey Grant was just straight up walking Marlon Vera down the entire time, and Vera couldn't change that whatsoever. I think Marlon Vera is a completely different fighter now than the first fight, and that's proven by age, 23 to 28. He's not even in his prime yet, so he's only going to get better from here on out if he does win this one. Man, I think Marlon Vera is going to go out there and win. Something else I want to mention about the first fight, though, that a lot of people don't really take into consideration. Marlon Vera had some decent moments. He actually almost finished Davey Grant twice in their first round of their first fight. Like, in the first round, Marlon Vera goes out there, goes for a heel hook submission, actually has it in, but Mark Goddard steps in, English referee, steps in because apparently Marlon Vera was grabbing the glove of Davey Grant, which I guess maybe he was. Maybe he had wrist control or something like that. It actually wasn't obvious that he had his hand in the glove of Davey Grant, but he had an in heel hook on the ground, ready to crank in that first round that he jumped to. And Mark Goddard steps in and stands them both up to a neutral position because Marlon Vera was grabbing the glove. But grabbing the gloves, that's like wrist control about an inch further up the fucking wrist. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really a bad thing to where you can take away someone's heel hook position from them, Marc Goddard. Other moments in the fight happened where he started taking it away again, and that was when Marlon Vera actually was grabbing at the gloves of his opponent, Davey Grant. But even still, Marlon Vera had a moment in the first round where he almost choked out Davey Grant with a rear naked, but Davey Grant managed to survive, escape, turn it around, end up on top, and land some big ground and pound at the end of the round, which secured him that first round. Other than that, though, I see Marlon Vera winning this one. If he was even in any moment close to finishing Davey Grant in the first fight, I think this version of Marlon Vera goes out there and gets a decision win, 29-28. I could maybe see Davey Grant going out there and doing good in the first round, but I think as the rounds go on, the pressure game of Marlon Vera has dramatically improved, and just the absolute efficiency of his moves that he does. He never changes face. He keeps to the same strategy the entire time. He never starts swinging crazy on his opponents. Stays behind himself. Very composed, that's the word I was looking for. Extremely composed out there, extremely efficient. I'm going to be going with Marlon Vera in this rematch in a close, scrappy, fight of the night worthy, 29-28, unanimous decision. And there is a lot on the line for the winner of this one, because there's some big names at bantamweight that need opponents to get themselves into the rankings. And you know who they are. And they're undefeated, I thought I should mention. They're undefeated contenders and prospects. No, I'm not talking about Umar Nurmagomedov. Don't be silly, I'm not talking about Jack Shaw. I'm talking about the only true undefeated bantamweight prospect, Sean O'Malley. I think if Sean O'Malley beats Lewis Smolka and Marlon Vera beats Davey Grant, they're just going to make that fight again. Because if Marlon Vera beats Davey Grant, I don't know where he's ranked right now in the bantamweight division, but I would assume it's probably around 14 or 15. I don't know about higher than that. Number 15 in the division. If he gets a win over top 25 opponent Davey Grant here, he's probably going to jump himself up to number 13 above the Cody Stamans of the division and start looking at the early teens of the bantamweight division, and that's where Sean O'Malley comes in. If he does beat Lewis Smolka, he's going to need a ranked opponent, and I think the rematch is just something that needs to happen just to put everyone's mind at ease. What happens if Marlon Vera's toe doesn't glance the perennial nerve of Sean O'Malley? Does it end in the way that Sean O'Malley just schools him like he was during the start of that fight, or does Marlon Vera actually go out there and beat him again? I know rematches aren't common in the unranked sections of MMA and the lower ranked sections of MMA, but I think we need to make this one. Two big names. The winner of that one will then be chucked straight into the top 10 of the bantamweight division against an Aldo again, maybe, or a Dominic Cruz, or someone around the area, Pedro Munoz, maybe even the loser of Sandhagen Dillashaw if Dillashaw loses and needs someone to bounce back against, and O'Malley's just beaten Smolka and Marlon Vera, or Marlon Vera's just beaten Davey Grant and Sean O'Malley again. Then we can make that fight, who knows? But, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on right now in the bantamweight division. I just think Marlon Vera is more patient. When you watch the Jonathan Martinez fight, and when you watched even the Gregory Popov fight, and even the fight that he had with Martin Day, he's good, and I remember the finishes of those fights, and that's what makes Davey Grant stick out in my brain. It's the one punch, put them down, KO them in the bantamweight division. It doesn't happen often, so I remember the KOs of Davey Grant. In the Jonathan Martinez fight, he did get dropped in that first round really badly, and he was losing that first round. And then eventually I knew he was outlanding Jonathan Martinez in the first round, but again, Jonathan Martinez was eventually getting to him, landed the big shot in the first round, put him down, started hurting him at the end of the round. Second round comes around, pretty even. Then Davey Grant starts to get this little second moment of a wave of just non-stop attack on Jonathan Martinez in the second round, eventually puts him down at the end of it. Great job by Davey Grant. However, that thing in the first round still happened. He still went out there, was pretty competitive with Jonathan Martinez, who I consider lower level than Marlon Vera, and he still got dropped in that first round. Then you go back to the Martin Day fight. That was very close as well, until the third round. 17-14 in the first round to Davey Grant, 30-22 in the second round to Davey Grant. Like, it was a competitive bout. Fair enough, he was winning and should have been winning on the scorecards, but it was an extremely competitive bout. And again, what happened in that fight? Martin Day put him down in one of those rounds. Put him down badly. So I worry about that happening against Marlon Vera. If that's happened twice in a row now in his bouts, does that happen against Marlon Vera? And when it does happen against Marlon Vera, Is he more composed than a Martin Day? Is he more composed than a Jonathan Martinez? I believe he will be. He's fought Jose Aldo. He's not going to get shook about the moment of the fight. He's had way more experience than those other guys. He's got more finishes than those other guys as well, and his finishing instinct is actually one of the best in the bantamweight division, I would argue. I like Marlon Vera here against Davey Grant. I think he's going to go out there and win. It's a great scrap. Davey Grant, in my opinion, is going to go out there and just use a bunch of kicks and then start swinging big overhands, because something that Marlon Vera does quite a lot is cover up with a high guard. So I think Davey Grant's hooks could find their way around that. But I don't think it's going to happen. Marlon Vera's got an amazing chin. He had an amazing chin the first time that he took on Davey Grant as well, where he lost. I think he's going to go out there and do pretty well here. I mean, since that first fight with Davey Grant, he's just done a different level of opponent. Like, Guan Yongning, fair play, no problem. He beat that guy. Who cares who that is anymore? He goes on to beat Brad Pickett, Brian Kelleher in the bantamweight division. Loses to John Lineker in a decent scrap. Gets beaten up quite badly there. But even then, that's 2017 Marlon Vera, who was 24. Look how young he is. That's crazy. 2018. He loses Douglas Silva to Andrade. Things aren't looking too good for Marlon Vera. Then he begins this other streak of beating Buji Buren, Guido Canetti. Not too many great opponents there, but then he goes on to beat Frankie Sainz, Nohelin Hernandez, Andre Yule, who's a decent bantamweight contender. Then he goes to beat Song Yadong. I don't care about the result. He beat Song Yadong, beat Sean O'Malley technically in a weird fight, and came close to beating Jose Aldo. That's the one where I'm like, okay, this is a real sign that he's done pretty good here, because Jose Aldo won that first fight, or the only fight that he's had with Marlon Vera, based on just barely outlanding Vera in one of those early 2 rounds. If he doesn't do that enough in those early 2 rounds, and doesn't take the back the way he did in the third, that's an extremely close fight. If Marlon Vera goes out there in round 1, and I know they gave him one of the rounds, by the way. I think it was round 2 that they gave Marlon Vera. But if they go out there in round 1, and Marlon Vera lands a 1-2 at the end of that round, pit, 1-2 on the chin, back goes Aldo's head, that round's his, and that fight is his. Like, that's how close the fight was between Jose Aldo and Marlon Vera. I don't see a guy who's making it neck and neck in a 3-rounder with Jose Aldo. Not a 5-rounder. Anyone can beat Aldo in a 5-rounder. He has no cardio to go 5 rounds. In a 3-rounder with Jose Aldo, Vera was extremely competitive. And that's 3-round Aldo. I like Marlon Vera's chances here. I think he's going to go out there, stick the front kick down the middle, and just show his youth as the rounds go on, where Davey Grant's maybe taking a little bit of damage, taking a couple of body shots. I like the way Marlon Vera clinches up now when things aren't going his way. I burped through that one. That was interesting. Demon came out of me. Even still, Davey Grant goes out there. In the first fight, he's battering Vera against a cage, and you can just see on Vera, he doesn't know what to do. He's just covering up. He's moving away. Oh, stop hitting me. I can take it. I've got a great chin. You're not finishing me here. But please just stop hitting me. I don't know what to do. In the next few fights that Marlon Vera has in his career, he starts using the clinch to his advantage a little bit more, like he did against Song Yadong, like he did against Jose Aldo as well. He seems to understand how to alleviate pressure, and that's something that Davey Grant does a lot. He starts pressuring opponents, starts landing big shots, and then the one big one lands out of nowhere. I don't think he's going to do that to Marlon Vera in this rematch. I'm picking Marlon, but I'm worried because Davey Grant, he's dangerous. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Winner of this one versus Sean O'Malley. Mainly if it's Marlon Vera, please. And I swear to God, I'm sorry for overlooking Smolka just then. If O'Malley beats Smolka. Oh my God, if Smolka beats O'Malley, the sport is fucking dead. See you later.